Panelists can chat with everyone. Okay, now you should be able to put your locations in. Please let us know where you're calling in from tonight. We'd love to hear. Yay! Okay, there we go. Whoa. Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Awesome. Thank
It's
you
too
so much
fast.
for being here. We'll get started in a moment. Awesome. Minnesota. Have some folks from all over. Great. Prince William, Wisconsin, Florida.
South Africa.
Okay, so it seems like folks are mostly done trickling in. I've seen the rate slow down, so we'll jump into it to be really respectful of your time tonight. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Viv Ramakrishnan. I am one of the co-founders and CEO of Project Read AI. We build a bunch of tools, both for teachers and for students, that are really at the cutting edge of early literacy and evidence-based early literacy instruction, and AI. And we are really thrilled to welcome tonight Dr. Valentina Contesse and Dr. Holly Lane from the University of Florida Literacy Institute, who I'm sure you all know well, and are huge fans of. And we're honored to have you here tonight. As we jump in, I want to just give a little context to why we're here tonight and how we got to this point. We know that it's been a really tough time for a lot of folks for a variety of reasons. We have students that are remote because of weather. We have students that are remote because of current events. And I reached out over the weekend to Holly and Val, who we work with on a variety of initiatives, both um, those that are related to product development, both those that are related to research and training, and just shared we want to figure out at Project Read what we can do to support all learners no matter where they are and no matter why they're there. And I shared the backdrop and why this felt important to us and making sure that, especially with our tool on the student facing side, the AI tutor, it felt like we were really uniquely positioned to be able to help support students that find themselves not able to attend school for any reason. And to that end, we put together a message that acknowledged where folks are at right now and an offer to be helpful, both for teachers as well as for families that currently have students learning from home. And I just want to thank Holly and Val because without skipping a beat, they both were like, how can we support? And we thought about putting together this webinar as a way to bring together a bunch of different resources that could be helpful to you in supporting students that are not able to be at school. So with that, before we jump into the content, I want to just give a moment to specifically ask Holly to talk a little bit about, I spoke about in the message that you might have seen why this was important to us at Project Read. I fundamentally believe, and we fundamentally on our team believe that literacy is a human right. And we believe that high quality literacy instruction and ensuring that every child can become a skilled and proficient reader is prerequisite to allowing them to access the world in the way that's fair to them, that allows them to unlock all the opportunities that they deserve. And we wanted to do whatever we could to support students to that end. I'd like to likewise give Holly a chance to talk a little bit about the origins of UFLI Foundations and how she finds herself on this webinar with us.
Thanks, Viv, and thanks everybody for being here. We're honored to support teachers in every way we can. So one of the things that you probably know about UFLI is that we want to make everything that we do as accessible as we can. That's why the vast majority of our resources are free. And the manual itself is as affordable as we could possibly make it. Because we think that equity and access to these tools is a really critical piece. All kids deserve good instruction, and clearly you all believe that, or you would not be here with us tonight. So the just the current conditions are really preventing some children from accessing good instruction. And we thought, here's a little thing that we can do. It's not probably nearly enough, but it is what's available to us to be able to do. Um, and so we want to support you as you support your students. And um, we're just glad that you're here to join us and hear what we have to offer you. So, as Viv mentioned, the origins of UFLI Foundations, in large part, uh, actually started with virtual teaching. So, it was because we were home during the pandemic, and we had just been out for about a year or two at that point, doing some work that was funded by the generous support of James Patterson, um, being in schools, trying to help teachers teach reading more effectively. And um, then I had a little staff of people working on this these efforts, and then all of a sudden they could no longer be in schools. And so we were concerned about the teachers and the kids that we had been working with, and we wanted to support them in whatever way we could. We really didn't know what we were doing, and we found out neither did anyone else when it came to remote teaching. So we really literally threw together in about a week's time a ton of resources and opened up what we called the Virtual Teaching Resource Hub. And honestly, it was one of the first ways that most people outside of Florida ever heard of UFLI. We were a tiny little entity within the state serving specific districts in our state. And all of a sudden, we had people logging onto this virtual teaching resource hub from Australia and Singapore and London and all of these places. Like, how are they even hearing about it? But it helped us understand how desperate people were for support at that moment in history. And we continue to add to and develop the resources. And eventually we put together a little bit of PD. So we're going to talk tonight about what we have at UFLI, both the virtual teaching resources and just the general UFLI resources that are already they kind of lend themselves to remote teaching anyway, because they were developed in large part during that time. So we'll talk a little bit about what we have in terms of resources. Valentina will walk you through how to access some of those things. And then we're going to turn it over to Viv. I'm sure that the Project Read Tutor is what most people are primarily interested in, but you get to hear from us first. So um, let me share with you what we have. Oops, that didn't work as planned. Did that show up right? Yep. Okay. All right. So to get us started, this is actually I pulled up one of our old virtual teaching resource hub PowerPoints and just repurposed it for tonight because it already had a lot of the how-to on here. Um, but the whole idea here is that we want to just give you some resources that will help you take your instruction from the classroom to a remote setting and still benefit children in significant ways. So the Virtual Teaching Resource Hub is the thing that we developed for this specific purpose. We had a series of online webinars, and I will actually kind of show you how to access these through the UFLI website now. But these webinars were developed specifically to support teachers. We didn't have any idea how desperate teachers still were by fall of 2020 for guidance in doing remote teaching. And so a lot of that you've probably figured out, but I just want to remind you of some of the resources that we generated and that are still available. And oddly enough, it was probably 2 or 3 months ago, we started thinking, should we just take down the virtual hub? Nobody's using that stuff anymore. And all of a sudden, people are accessing it again for a lot of reasons. So you're probably familiar already with the UFLI toolbox. And um, the toolbox is a key part of what we do. This is probably the most visited part. It is the most visited part of our website. And if you haven't been using UFLI specifically, you can access this. Anybody can access it. It doesn't require any kind of password or anything to get to it. Just go to ufliteracy.org and it'll take you to our website, and then you click on the toolbox. But you can also click the little resources tab up here, and this will take you to the virtual teaching resource hub. So if you go there to that link, this is the main part. This is where the main contents of the hub are. Now, I will tell you, we have not been actively curating this content. So some of it's kind of outdated. We have better stuff on the toolbox in some instances. But these 5 little categories are where we have things. So we do have some sample lessons, some lesson templates, and some just suggestions for how you can organize and structure your virtual instruction. Um, Most of that, if you're using UFLI, you're better off at the toolbox for those kinds of things. Then we have a variety of other instructional activities. Also, most of those have been updated on the toolbox. Where it really starts getting useful if you haven't done a lot of remote teaching is this section, the managing behavior, some tips to how do you keep kids engaged online. It's not an easy task. If you weren't teaching during that, you may not understand the Herculean efforts of teachers who were teaching during that time. It was really amazing. So this is just a little bit of a snapshot of some of the things that we have in that section of the virtual teaching hub, and just a lot of things that will help you. The UFLI came out of special education, that we are interventionists at heart. We work with kids with learning and behavior disorders. So having behavior suggestions just came very naturally to us as well. We also have some just general technology tools and tips. No promises here. Some of this is very likely obsolete by now since it came out in 2020. But then this part is the other main section of the virtual teaching resource hub that I wanted to direct you to, and that's the webinar series. So we did do a series of webinars, and funnily enough, as we're sitting on a webinar that's now, it's like webinars, we do them all the time. This webinar right here was UFLI's very first webinar, this introduction to teaching reading online. And funny story, we had just gotten a webinar license, and we really debated, should we get a 500 seat license or a 1,000 seat license? Do we want to spend the extra money? Wouldn't it be cool if we ever got 1,000 people on a webinar? Well, when we announced this webinar, we didn't know that you had to cap registration. And so we hit the 1,000 seat limit in about 90 minutes after we announced it online that we were doing this. And by the time the webinar came along a week later, we had over 20,000 people registered, and we were, how do we make it? But we figured out how to stream it on Facebook, and most people figured out how to access it, and we've posted the recordings since then. But that was our very first UFLI webinar. So we have others here as well that just address different elements of teaching reading online. Here's the remaining ones. We even did a little what we called our after party, kind of recapping some of the key ideas, and then also doing a lot of Q&A for teachers. What's funny about it is that we didn't know really anything more about teaching reading online than anybody else, but nobody was providing support. So we figured some things out and shared, and people were really super grateful for that. So we just want you to be aware that if you are embarking on online teaching at this point, these are still some really valid ideas and tools that you can use. Here's also just a section of the resource hub that is specifically about the kinds of frequently asked questions. Again, some of this may still be obsolete at this point, but there are some good resources there as well. So back to our toolbox. This is where most of UFLI's resources reside, and it is still the place to go these days for supporting virtual teaching. So if you're teaching UFLI lessons online, as you know, we already have lesson resources that you can access. And when you click on one of these, it'll take you to the actual resources. The slide decks and the everything else is a online usable document. So the slide decks are one of the key elements, of course. Those are all available to anybody who wants to use them. If you aren't teaching UFLI and don't have the manual, you'll have to wing a lot of the lesson, but it may still provide you some useful tools. Then the main other thing that I just want to point out, and that Valentina will walk you through some of, is our digital resources. So our digital resources, we have things like, virtual manipulative letters. These can be really useful to model for kids the kind of encoding and decoding work that we want them to be doing. We have our virtual blending board, of course, and our games. The game generator is, I think, probably one of the most valuable tools. And if you are simply supporting parents in doing home instruction or support, the games are something that are very usable for parents. So hopefully, as we get through this, this will help you with this idea of taking your instruction online. So I will stop sharing at this point and turn it over to Dr. Contesse to take us through some of these resources.
Thanks, Holly, and thanks again, Viv, for welcoming us tonight. We're really excited to highlight some of the tools that Holly mentioned have been helpful for teachers in the past for remote learning. We heard in the chat earlier from a teacher who used them 5 or 6 years ago, so thank you for sharing that. As Holly mentioned, the toolbox is really going to have the majority of the resources that we would recommend would be useful at this time for remote learning. I wanted to show you, as Holly mentioned, if you're teaching a specific concept, you would go to that lesson and you are able to download, as Holly pointed out, a PowerPoint or Google Slides. So this is ideal for remote teaching because you're able to, again, either download as Google Slides or PowerPoint, and you have the visuals that are going to support your students having that really explicit and systematic instruction. Once you download your slides, you can also edit these in any way that you need. For example, if you only have 15 minutes with your students virtually to provide instruction, you can adjust these to meet those needs during this time. So we wanted to highlight those. All of these other resources are printable resources, but also PDFs, so they can be sent to families, again, to work alongside those concepts that you are targeting in your instruction. As Holly pointed out, we are big fans of that digital resources section of the hub. A lot of these resources actually began at the time of the Virtual Teaching Resource Hub. So of course, there's information about Project Read, but Viv is going to tell you all about those resources. The blending board is ideal for activities such as the blending drill, where students are going to practice with previously taught concepts, reading many words. So just very quickly, we wanted to show you that you can download the actual blending board app. But also there is a tutorial for that app in order to show you how to set it up in order to form words for your students. But really quickly, if you're not familiar with the blending board app, you can see here we have tiles. And so the teacher would manipulate the tiles on the blending board and present a word to their students. So if Holly was my student, I might say, okay, Holly, let's say the sounds in this word. Ready? Say them with me. Let's stretch them out.
At, mat.
Good job blending those sounds together. How about this?
Sat, sat.
Great job stretching out those sounds. We've been working really hard on that. Great job, Holly. All right, so you can see as the teacher, I was the one clicking the tiles to present Holly those words to practice decoding or reading. The other two apps that you'll see here are those virtual word maps. These are ideal for word work where students are practicing both decoding and encoding. And that is because students can actually click and move the tiles. This can be used on a computer or a tablet. And as you can see with me clicking and moving, students would be able to do that again to practice both decoding or reading, but also encoding or spelling. And then last but not least, that game generator is going to be really, really helpful because you can align it to specific concepts that you're teaching, either whether you're using UFLI Foundations or other programs. So when you first enter the game app, usually there's going to be a pop-up that is actually a how to use the game's tutorial, which is really helpful if you're new to the games. And then in order to select specific words that you want to generate a game with, you click select words from UFLI Foundations, and you can select a specific lesson, again, aligning to the toolbox in order to present a game to your students. So sticking with lesson 45, our favorite lesson, you can see that this game would generate with words that target that SH concept. And we also wanted to show you that on the Virtual Teaching Resource Hub, at the very, very bottom, if you are new to remote teaching and even the use of slides for instruction, there are tutorial videos. As Holly mentioned, these are actually not using UFLI Foundation's materials because these videos were recorded during COVID before UFLI Foundations, but these may be helpful to view in order to get an idea of tips for screen sharing or how to use things like the word work mat apps. So we just wanted to make sure to highlight those as well. So I think our time is up of sharing UFLI resources. I shared a link in the chat a little bit earlier that has all of those resources that Holly introduced, and I was able to show you around a little bit more. And now we will hand it over to Viv to talk all about the Project Read resources that he is sharing tonight.
Thank you, Val. I'm gonna get to that in a moment. And I know this is sort of out of scope for this webinar, but I couldn't help but notice the incredible chemistry you and Holly had on that practice routine. And it made me realize there's probably a whole nother webinar that y'all need to do on just the origins of UFly, how Val, you did your education at UF and your relationship. There's all these things that came up for me that I think this webinar just scratches the surface of and that we made alluded to, but I think so many people would benefit from hearing the full origin story of both your collaboration personally, given said chemistry, and then how this program came to be as the co-authors of the UFLI Foundation's manual.
Maybe one day.
Maybe
Tonight
one
they want to
day.
hear about the tutor. Go for it, Viv.
Yeah, that's a follow-up. That's a follow-up. But I'm sure that people would love that, and I'm already seeing that in the chat a little bit. Okay, folks, so let me share my screen. And Holly hears me say this all the time, but I'm the tech guy who's really bad at sometimes like really basic tech stuff. So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna make sure I share sound, and we're gonna go with it. Okay. Can you all see this okay? Perfect. Okay, so you know a little bit about us, but we use not just AI, but tech generally to, I think, do a bunch of cool stuff that really tries to support evidence-based literacy instruction. We have tried to not just leverage AI in the tools that we build, but we've also really tried to do so by using AI to make these tools as accessible as possible. And what that means for us is keeping our costs low internally, passing that on in really free and accessible and affordable prices as much as we can. So our site, projectread.ai, I'm sure you all have seen it, and you might have heard about the decodable generator, which now over 2 years ago kind of went quasi-viral. And we've had over 200,000 teachers over the years sign up organically, which is great. But we've also built a bunch since then. And what's funny is the original thing that we first started building was the student-facing practice program, the AI Tutor, as we call it. Maybe there's a better name for it that's snappier, but we always just stuck with that. And we also are really proud to be the digital partner of UFLI. And you all might be familiar with the UFLI portal, which was released this year, but we are collaborating on a variety of initiatives, including the UFLI portal, including a lot of other stuff that we're working on. And it's just, I'm honored to work with UFLI, both because of the incredible program they've built, but also the incredible people behind it, as you've seen on this call. And I largely think about our platform in two sets of tools. We have the tools for teachers, and that includes the decodable story generator, and the UFLI assessment and planning portal is actually the full name, or the UFLI portal. And then we have our tools for students, and by tools I mean tool, which is the AI tutor. And it uses automated speech recognition to really provide that one-on-one feedback and support for students. It's aligned to the UFLI scope and sequence, and students advance as they show, I don't want to say mastery, but proficiency over a given concept. And it's also, I want to just mention, it's been a work in progress. We started working on it now almost 3 years ago, with the fundamental question being, how can I, when I was in the classroom, I didn't have enough time to provide nearly as much feedback as each student needed. And so, how could we provide practice after they've gotten high quality instruction from a highly trained teacher, and give them the amount of reps and feedback they need to become confident, successful readers? Um, so I would say largely within Scarborough's Rope, we cover mostly things related to word recognition, and the tutor certainly is firmly within the category of word recognition. So both accuracy at the word level and then developing fluency at the sentence level for students as well. Um, I'm not going to spend a ton of time going through this stuff, but I'm sure it could be helpful to you as well if you're still supporting students virtually. That includes the decodable generator, where you get to choose your scope and sequence and put in custom words if you have the pro version of the program. Choose the length as well. And then I'm not going to show you what that looks like. You've probably seen it, but you get to see a cool story. You can edit it, all those good things. You know how to use decodable text. The thing I do want to mention is that I've seen a lot more decodable stories generators pop up. Some are better than others. ChatGPT still struggles with this out of the box, though. When I first started working on this, ChatGPT was around 65%, so it's gotten better. But fundamentally, this is a whole nother webinar, but the models are tokenized in a way that are not aware of phoneme and grapheme correspondences in a given word. So we've done a bunch of work to make these stories from our decodable text generator actually decodable. Okay, the UFLI planning portal is awesome. I don't have time to go through it in its nuance, but long story made short, you put in your data, it spits out your small groups, and you can also just type in the misspelled words. But it spits out, with the guidance of the UFLI team, the small groups as they should be grouped according to guidance from the UFLI team, along with the specific activities from the manual down to the page number about what to do with each of those small groups in a tier 1 setting. Great. Okay, now let's get to the tool that kind of brought us here tonight, which is the AI Tutor. And as I mentioned, we originally started working on this tool because we knew so many students never reach the escape velocity with accuracy at the word level and automaticity to even become fluent readers, let alone become, proficient readers by the end of third grade. And it was an outgrowth of my experience in the classroom where I just simply did not have enough time to provide practice combined with feedback for each student. And the question was, could we find a way to do this at scale, for every student in a way that really serves as a co-teacher or co-pilot for a teacher? Instead of explaining much more, I'm just going to show you what this looks like at the word level for a given student. And I won't, it's about a 90-second video. I'll try to skip forward a little bit. But what you'll notice is that the program is listening to her and color coding which Elkonin box she struggled to pronounce.
Try reading this word carefully. Take your time to look at the letters and listen to how this word sounds. Bed. Great job. You read that word correctly.
So I think hopefully from the video, you get the crux of the program, and we've continued to improve it over time. What you didn't see was she missed twice before that point, and so more scaffolds were opened up, including to the point where she could use her finger to continuously blend. Let me stop. Let me see if I can get past this slide. We also make data available for the teacher from different sessions on what lessons they've completed, what concepts they've missed, etc. You can also change modes between word mode and story mode. And this, by the way, I should mention, if you've been using the program, this is coming very soon, like hopefully this week. But you can move between word mode and story mode where they're either reading sentences in story mode and getting then more specific feedback on words they missed or struggled with, or just word mode for those students that just still need a lot of work solidifying their grapheme phoneme correspondences. Also get an email at the end of the day that walks you through patterns you've seen in your class data or that the tutor's seen in your class data for skills that students have struggled with. And one of the things I also want to mention is that we are still early in the research journey because we keep evolving the tools, but we do have some really promising data that shows that even with 15 minutes a week, all students benefit significantly in fluency growth, but particularly students starting below grade level. So that's research we want to continue to build on and learn from, but we're doing it because we specifically want to move the needle for students that need it most. And I think that's also why this is relevant to our conversation tonight. We did a pilot in, so two different use cases. One, you saw kind of the fluency growth in a tier 1 setting, but we also did a pilot in a middle school intervention setting where students who had been in a given district in California since kindergarten, reading based on their core phonics data, some were struggling with CVC words, some were struggling with basic blends. And I think the district was a little bit of a loss. And this was like a really encouraging pilot that we did in middle school. So I do think the point here being that you can see, I think you could apply it both for older students who need work with foundational skills or with students that are kinder through second, let's say. And Holly, I stole one of your quotes, so this, you can look it up on Twitter. She said it, y'all. But the point being that we really do try to build these things in a way that build on the existing evidence. We're not shooting from the hip, and we work with the UFLI team to give me advice all the time on how we could make it better, and then both in the moment and then longer term, work on how to really sharpen this over time to be the benefit of all learners. Holly, before I get out of this mode, is there anything that you want to share? Because you had a moment to see this tutor in action recently, and I'm just curious if you wanted to share any observations.
One of the things that I thought was really amazing, so I did get to see it in the school where Viv goes to do a lot of his prototype testing. And so these kids are used to seeing him in and out of the classroom, and that was clear that they knew him and loved him. But what was so amazing to me was this teacher had a little block of time where she put all of the kids on their own individual devices with headphones, and they were all doing this practice at one time. And generally, when I go into a classroom where they're attempting to do something like that, every other minute you have a kid that like, I need help, I need help. And that really wasn't the case, except for the one kid whose microphone was not pulled down. It's like, oh yeah, these were first graders and they were able to manage this, sign on, get set up and do it. And 100% engaged. They were just so interested in doing this. And I, went along and they were at very different levels. So it really was differentiating for their needs and providing that additional support. It's not intended to be initial instruction. It's intended to be supplemental support, extra practice, but practice that doesn't require another adult sitting there doing it. And it was a really powerful thing to see in person. I wished I'd gotten to stay there all day just watching this because the kids were so obviously thrilled to get on there again. And it was something they knew how to do. I said they obviously did it a lot, but they didn't care. They were ready to go and do it. So they really did, I think, benefit in many ways just from my very brief observation of that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Holly. Before we get into logistics, I see some questions as well. I'm going to answer in the chat. I do see Christy Worthington is on this call, and Christy is reached out to me last year and I did a webinar with her recently that you should see in full depth. But Christy, if you are available, do you want to chime in a little bit with your experience, because you've used it a lot? And I also think what might be relevant to our conversation is you've used it with students who are on break at home and who are multilingual learners. So I'm going to allow you to talk, and hopefully you're on the other end and are listening. Otherwise, we'll keep it moving. We'll give it. There we go. Hi,
Hi,
Christy.
Viv. Hi. Thank you for asking me to speak. I am so excited about what I saw pop up on the screen just a few moments ago.
Of course, we'd love to hear any extra context you can add, even though I put you on the spot.
Yeah, you did. I've used the tutor in so many different instances, and my love for it and my amazement continues to grow. Um, I did do a webinar with Viv that went into a little bit more detail. My lowest babies are hesitant at first, and I do have to encourage them daily. But once they're on there and they're coming to me with that big smile and showing me how many points they earned, that is worth its weight in gold. My English language learners, the effect that it's had on them is magical, is all I can say. Um, their confidence, their understanding of how to put words together, and their they know they can say the word correctly, is had a profound effect on them, in particular. Should I say anything else, Viv?
I just love the anecdote about the student you had who surprised you when you saw that she was active in your dashboard over the break. And if you want to share that
Okay.
anecdote quickly, that'd be
Yes, I will. Just
I have
quickly share that.
my tissues ready for it. So.
Okay, you better get ready. So I was using the tutor with an after school club, and it was Christmas break, and I set them all up and said, go read. And I kept getting emails that they were reading, and I was excited. And I waited till the end of break. It was time to go back to school, and I finally opened it up to see who was reading. And one of the little girls that was in my club was also in my second grade reading class. And she and her sister had earned over 1,200 points, 1,300 points, and everybody else had about 300 points. And I was shocked and I didn't believe it. I thought there was something weird going on because this little girl was a selective mute. I knew she could read. I knew she could speak. And she did say a few words to her priest, and her mother told me that in English. So I knew that she could, but she wouldn't. And she was stuck because she wouldn't. And so I knew the mom, and I regularly had dinner with the mom at the mom's restaurant. So I went to the mom with my phone and showed the mom and said, what is going on? And the mom said she had gone into the closet all by herself with the tutor and just kept repeating back and was practicing and just kept going. And mom and the older sister were on the outside of the closet with their little hands on their ears listening. And she's talking and she's brilliant and she doesn't need any really support. She's learning wonderfully.
Thank you so much for letting me put you on the spot and sharing that, Christy. I think that folks very much benefit directly from hearing from teachers who've
It's
used these tools.
incredible. It's incredible. And it's happened again this year with another little boy. Came to me with his head down, looking at his shoes, didn't talk to the other kids. And his head is up and he's talking to the other kids. It's really amazing.
Well,
It's amazing.
thank you again
What
for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Holly.
I was just going to chime in because one of the things I loved about that story here, again, too, is just that the tutor is the kids see it as um completely, non-judgmental, just helpful.
Exactly. Their
If
inhibition is
there's
gone.
yeah, if there's a human, even a teacher they love, it's still
Yes. It's so
nerve-wracking to
yes,
perform.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be able to, have somebody listen to them and give them feedback, but that they know
Yes.
it's not a real person that can judge them
Yes.
and their weaknesses, I think is a really powerful piece of
I
it.
agree. That's what I call the magic.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Christy, so much for sharing that. I think that folks gained a lot from hearing your perspective directly and for being a good sport about me putting you on the spot.
Of course, my pleasure.
Okay, so I've had a bunch of great. Um, uh-oh, I didn't just remove Christy, I kicked her out again, hence I'm bad at Zoom. Sorry, Christy, I hope you can jump back in. Um, I see a bunch of great questions. Okay, you've talked about this. You showed this to us, like what do I do to actually access it? So the premise here of what we thought about was we've built something that can be really helpful for students in a remote setting. And typically the cost is $15 per student per year. And that's because the cost of speech recognition for us is actually quite high. And we've tried to keep it as affordable as we can, but it's $15 per student per year. With that said, with everything that has been going on, we realized that we had an opportunity to be helpful here for any educator or any family that has a student who is learning from home. And we wanted to, especially given everything that's happening, make that available to everybody free of cost. So um, there's no litmus test other than, hey, just, Scouts Honor, would this resource be helpful for you, for your students, and then also for sharing with families directly? So I'm going to walk you through how to actually access that from a more tactical perspective, and hopefully that's helpful to you and then anybody else who sees things later on. And to answer your question, I just saw come in, which of the five pillars is an answer? Yeah, it's phonics and phonemic awareness. It's not the other strands. It's not the upper strands of the rope. I would love to get to that point at some point, but we try to do what we do well and not try to overextend ourselves. So that's where we're at right now. And I hope that it's helpful for kids that still need support with that right now. So let me do another screen share, and I'm going to walk you through kind of how this all goes. Okay, so we have this Project Read Remote Learning Scholarship, and I'm going to put the tiny URL into the chat as well. Tiny URL.com/Project Read Scholarship. And as you go through there, you'll see a Spanish version that's available for families. So if you want to share this directly with any families in your network, I truly want this to reach every kid that could benefit from it. So please share it widely share it with any family or any group that supports families that you think could use the resource. You're going to go down and you're going to basically fill out which of these you are. If you're an educator, meaning that you have a classroom of students yourself, great. If you're a school administrator or a district administrator, we can also work with you, especially in Minnesota. We have worked to support St. Paul Public Schools, which already had the tutor in addition to our other tools. And we've had others reach out. And if you are serving a high percentage of students that are impacted by just current events and or remote learning needs, we are happy to support you. So please do reach out if that is your school. We know that this is not just in the Twin Cities or just in the area, but families around the country are being impacted, and we want to be supportive to anybody genuinely who could use it. So you're going to go through that flow. And if you're an educator, because I think most of the folks on this call are, so I'm just going to say Viv test Project Read AI. I'm going to see some questions. One of the things we can't do is if your school already has a Project Read school plan or district plan, we're happy to talk to your admin, especially if they're supporting your system supports students that need it at scale, how to turn this on for you all. But what we can't do is override your school districts or school plan settings. So we're being very generous about the extending this offer to schools that need it. But we also ask for an alternative email in case it's just, for example, your classroom that's going to need access. And so you fill those things out, you submit, and then what happens is you're going to see an invitation from invitations@projectread.ai come in to your email. You'll also see a remote learning scholarship email from me that follows. So I'll walk through the email in a little bit more detail, but first I'm just going to walk you through what this actually looks like. View that invitation. You've been invited to join this organization, the Remote Learning Scholarship. You're going to accept that, and I'm going to type in my name. I'm going to type in who I am, and this is the same thing parents would do. So a parent might say, parent, or they might say, mom, or whatever it is, but you're just going to, and because this is really optimized more for teachers, but families can fill out and create a classroom as well. So I'm going to say I'm a teacher, and then I'm going to create my classroom and say Viv's remote learners. And I get to choose the default lesson from the UFLI scope and sequence that all learners start on, but I can adjust that for each student. So I'll show you that in a moment as well. So if I want them to start on lesson 19, they can start there. And as you see, it goes all the way through June 30th, the end of June 29th at midnight. So you're going to add your students, and I'm going to add Holly L. and I'm going to add Val. And maybe, if you want to just add initials, you're welcome to do that too. Um, but here's what happens next. I can go click on that tutor tab. I can change what mode they're in. And if I click on their names, one, I'll be able to see details on how many stars they've earned. We used to have coins, but that was a little too mercenary and capitalistic, so we went with stars. But you can change the objective to any objective that you want. So, like I mentioned, students will move forward based on their own progress in the program and their accuracy. But if for any reason you want to move them back or you want to move them ahead, you also have the ability to put your hands on the wheel as the manager of the classroom and do that. Now, how do they log in? Wish I would tell you that we had an iPhone app. No, we haven't built an iPhone app yet. We really try to build this for the lowest common denominator of tech access that we see in schools, and oftentimes that's like a low bandwidth Chromebook. So what this also means, though, is that students can access this on any device that has an internet connection. So you have your class code right here. The reason why I mention that is because that's the key to how your students log in, is you share your class code. So keep that in mind. You have your class code right here. I'm going to show you what happens though.
Choose your class from the buttons on the screen.
Okay, so let's say you log out, or you're sharing this with your parents in your class. They put in that
Choose your
class
class
code.
from the buttons on the screen. If you don't see your class, type in the class code the teacher gave you.
We already have Viv's household saved in there. I think Viv's remote learners in another classroom. So we're gonna go enter that
Click on
class
your name
code.
from the list on the screen. If you don't see your name, let your teacher know.
And you just get to click your name and you log in. And we also, for schools and or for districts specifically, have Clever and ClassLink options. But for you all, the easiest way to do this and to make this viable at home for families as well is through the class code setup. So student logs in, sees their name, clicks their name, and all of a sudden they're into the mode and the lesson that you've set them on. Now, one more thing I wanted to show you. You're going to get this email from me, and I'm trying to process these applications like within a day or two, but we're a small shop, so turning it around as quick as we can. But as soon as you fill out that scholarship application, we'll review it. And then besides getting that email from me, you're going to get this email that has instructions for you. If a family fills out the family's facing version in Spanish, they'll get an email that contains Spanish directions. They'll also get a little walkthrough video about how to do this from our awesome designer Santi, who recorded the same walkthrough I'm doing for you all for families in Spanish. Um, but for you all, you'll get an email. And if you want to share directions with your families about how to access this at home, we've created family letters. And there's a drive right here. And you're going to click on that in the email we send you. And let's say that I want to support my families that are Hmong speaking. I serve a bunch of families who speak Hmong at home. We have this translated for you all, and you can take that class code and you can put in your class code. So now they know exactly what to put in and they know how to get there. And so I would just make a copy of that. I mean, I have editing permissions, which you won't have. So you'll have to make a copy of that to include that information for families. But in a bunch of different languages, we have that. And if you have families that you want to support whose language is not contained here, please reach out to us and I'm sure we can find a way to put that together. Um, just want to emphasize one more time, this is both for educators who are serving student populations who've been impacted, as well as families directly. I know that we typically go through working with schools and teachers and all the folks that are school based, and that's awesome. And I think you all will be a great conduit for supporting students at scale. But the thing I want to mention is that we also know there's a bunch of families that might not otherwise be able to hear about our program from a teacher that shared it with them. So, however we can reach those families, we really want to. I saw a question about, does your school automatically have access? No, they don't. We have 3 products and we don't try to shoehorn everybody into getting all of them. You get to choose what you want. It's like a menu. So some people just have the pro version of the decodable generator. Some people have the UFLI portal. Some people have both. Some people have the tutor. Some people have only the tutor. So it really depends on your school's plan. With that said, if you are on here to learn about remote learning, but don't actually feel like you have an immediate need of students that you're supporting, but are curious about this, please or if your school already has a plan, you're free to reach out to us. We are very generous with the trials of the tutor because we know that, to get students on there and try it out takes a little bit of time. So if you want to try it out for reasons that are not connected to supporting remote learners, please let us know because typically it's used in schools. I know that that's a lot of information I threw at you. We will make this recording available. And again, if you fill out the scholarship form and you self-identify as supporting students that could use this, we will get back to you with all of the information that I shared just in the walkthrough here. But with any last time, let me see, I see some QA. We've tried it. Okay, good questions. There was one, does the swipe finger feature active? It's not active on Apple devices. There it's a button that blends it for you. The reason is because Apple doesn't make swiping at different speeds audio playback viable for us. So we spent like 2 weeks trying to make it work on iPads and we couldn't. So on Chromebooks it does, on non-iPads it does. As it might be on Chrome on an iPad. Sabra, feel free to email me because it should be working and I'm happy to actually debug with you over a call. On iPads, it won't. On Chrome devices, on non-iPads, like on Chromebooks, it should. Mindy, yes, Mindy, please do give it a shot and also feel free to email me directly. We've been processing a ton and it's possible that I missed it in all of them, but please email me directly if you filled it out and you didn't see anything. I'm working through them and got most of them out that had been filled out by Monday. I got most of them out yesterday. Okay, let's see. Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, somebody asked, is there a video of just this, a tutorial for just this part so they don't have to listen to all of us talking?
No, no, there's not. But with that being said, what I could probably do from the recording is clip and upload to our YouTube a version that starts with, either what it is and or directions for accessing the scholarship.
That's good.
Okay, if you have any issues, sometimes, like I said, I might need to email your alternate email if I haven't already, because your email can't go both ways, or it can't be used under a school plan and under something that has different access. So that's why we ask for the alternate email, and I might have missed that. So if you have questions about a specific case, please certainly reach out to support at Project Read, and we will make sure that we answer that for you. I see one last question. Tutor provides opportunities for practice and not the explicit direct instruction. Yeah, that's right. Right now, it's not doing any of the upfront explicit instruction that we would anticipate that educators do to introduce these concepts. Well, it really is kind of supercharged practice and supportive feedback. Okay, I think that's all the nitty-gritty questions we've gotten. I will just close this out then with a word of gratitude for our panelists, Dr. Holly Lane and Dr. Valentina Contesse. These two y'all are the creators and the authors of the UFLI Foundation's manual, and there's a whole team of people that poured into that, both in that manual and the program and how it came to be, and certainly since then. It's an incredible team of people, and I am just really grateful that from the top down, they've always been willing to partner with us on a variety of initiatives, including this one. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting your students. Thank you for supporting your students when they need it most. And Holly, Val, any last words you all want to add before we close out?
I just want to say thank you, Viv, for being so generous with this and so dedicated and having your heart in exactly the right place. We love working with Viv in every way, and you all can see why, I'm sure.
Well, thank you for
Thank you all
saying
for all you do. You, Viv, and the teachers on here who are plugging away through challenging times.
totally. If you are in Minnesota and or any other places that are kind of at the center of a lot of this, please know that our hearts are with you and we appreciate the work that you and that everybody on this call does to support students. With that, have a great evening and take care.
And hang in there.
Bye, everyone. Okay, the webinar.